Blade Runner was released in 1982. It's directed by Ridley Scott and stars Harrison Ford as Rick Deckard, whose character is a Blade Runner, what we might think of as a type of bounty hunter. His assignment is to hunt down 4 rogue replicants. Replicants are advanced human-like androids. Replicants have been banned on Earth since they tend to rebel. And it's very hard to tell between the actual humans and replicants since they're so very similar. That's where the Void Comp test comes in. There's 20 to 30 questions that are asked that test the replicant's empathy, physical attributes, and there are questions that test emotions, blushing, and heart rate. The film is set in a harsh dystopian LA climate, where the weather is mostly rainy and overcast due in part to pollution and an ecological disaster. So it's very different than our current Southern California climate. From the moment Deckard is given the task of hunting down the replicants, what was clear to me was that the replicants are very hard to distinguish from the humans because the models are nearly identical without actually being human. There are nearly 7 different versions of this film. The 3 most popular are the theatrical release, the director's cut, and the final cut. I watched the final cut and prefer this version. This is also director Ridley Scott's preferred version as well. Blade Runner is credited with being a pioneer in the cyberpunk genre. It's noted for being an inspiration for The Matrix, Akira, Ghost in the Shell, and Cowboy Bebop, to name a few. A question I ask myself while watching this movie is, what is it to be human? Is it how we feel? Is it what we do? Is it how we treat others? Is it a test to see how we act in this life or the next life? I rewatched Blade Runner: The Final Cut yesterday, and it was immediately transfixed into the movie. For a movie that was released in 1982, I felt like I was there. It was way ahead of its time. I think it's 2019 Los Angeles. You thought you were in a 2019 Los Angeles, a much rainy, more overcast Los Angeles, because as depicted in my presentation, it's a very dark place. Everyone is out for themselves. There's no sense of community. There's no sense of family. It's a dog-eat-dog world. It's a very serious atmosphere. And I think that Harrison Ford, who plays Rick Deckard, did very well at portraying this serious character who is tasked with hunting down 4 rogue replicants. The actors who played the 4 replicants are outstanding. They were so well cast. I was so transfixed and put into the movie that automatically, to start off, I'm going to say, yes, it definitely holds up well in 2025. And it's only an hour and a half long, so there's not much, in my opinion, boredom at all. I mean, everything's straight to the point. I think that the mood and tone, Ridley Scott hit the numbers out of the ballpark. I think it was fantastic. I think that the main thing that I asked myself while watching this movie is, well, what is it to be human? And the reason that these 4 rogue replicants showed up to Earth, of course, was because they want to live longer. They want to meet their maker, which they end up doing in this movie. I'm not going to get into big spoilers. I just want you guys to watch the movie if you haven't watched it already. Like I said, I prefer the final cut. The replicants want to meet their maker, and they end up doing so. They want to live longer. It's a tale as old as time. We don't want to die. We want immortality. A lot of us do. And the people that claim that they don't want immortality, I think they're lying. People say that they're not scared to die now until it's too late, right? And they're on their deathbed. Things start to change a little bit. This movie was well acted. The action sequences were great. Superb action sequences. The color was great. I pay attention to these things. The atmosphere and the tone. I don't think we would have a Matrix or a Ghost in the Shell or an Akira or Cowboy Bebop if this movie hadn't been done. And if they were made without Blade Runner being done, I don't think it would be in that dark, dystopian, cyberpunk atmosphere like a lot of these movies currently are, mimicking Blade Runner. Blade Runner was way ahead of its time. I think it was actually futuristic in some way, in terms of the way they dress. I mean, some of the people who are dressed in that movie dress like that today. This movie came out over 40 years ago. And if you were to ask me, is Blade Runner: The Final Cut worth watching? Absolutely. It's one of my favorite Ridley Scott movies. I mean, it's up there. I felt every bit of satisfaction in watching this movie. What does it mean to be human? And I've always been fascinated with androids like characters like Data from Star Trek: The Next Generation. I don't know if we're actually going to get there in real life. I mean, we do have AI now, but they've always fascinated me. And of course, with Terminator and Terminator 2, one of the best action films ever made, we are, made and cautioned to believe the worst of AI, which it totally makes sense because we know that people will use anything, to justify their means for power because of their greed, lust for power, and wealth. So, and rightfully so, we should fear some of the future if there isn't some kind of laws and ethics that are involved to maintain the AI before it gets out of hand. But for the purpose of this movie, the replicants, without getting into a huge spoiler, are actually, from what I observe, more human than the humans ourselves. That's really the gist of the movie. The irony that the replicants show more love, compassion, empathy, what it means to be human, than the actual us. And I thought that was very beautiful. I think that's the whole premise and point of the movie. And I prefer the final cut because the ending of the original Blade Runner is a little too happy. It was not realistic. As a matter of fact, the footage at the end of the theatrical release of Blade Runner was the driving scene. There's a driving scene. That driving scene was old footage, unused footage from The Shining, from Stanley Kubrick. He let Ridley Scott use that driving the freeway and the mountains footage from The Shining. But the final cut, I believe it was released in 2007, because there's a director's cut that came out in 97. I think in 2007, don't quote me, the final cut came out, and that was how it intended to be. I'm going to spoil here. So if you haven't watched Blade Runner, feel free to, scroll through this video. Spoiler alert, you've been warned. The final cut is the way that Ridley Scott intended it to be. It shows the possibility that Rick Deckard himself could be either a replicant or a human. They don't give us the details. Ridley Scott thinks that he's a replicant. Harrison Ford thinks that he's still human. And I actually have to agree with Harrison Ford. I think that Rick Deckard is still a human, honestly. So if you haven't watched Blade Runner, please check it out, the final cut specifically, because it tends to be mostly everyone's favorite. I think if there was to be a poll, the final cut's the most popular. I watched it on Blu-ray, and I don't think that you'll be dissatisfied, especially if you're a lover of sci-fi. You'll appreciate it. And I see the similarities for myself in terms of the soundtrack, which, by the way, is excellent in Blade Runner. It's very jazzy. It reminds me, in a dystopian way, a cyberpunk way, it reminds me, honestly, Cowboy Bebop. I would say the Cowboy Bebop soundtrack is one of the best soundtracks ever in any series or film, because there was a Cowboy Bebop movie, but I saw the similarities in the Cowboy Bebop soundtrack and the Blade Runner soundtrack. So Blade Runner, the final cut, holds up absolutely in 2025. It's one of the best sci-fi movies ever made. It was ahead of its time. And it's hard to believe you're a sci-fi fan if you haven't seen, or at least seen, Blade Runner. You don't have to like it. To each his and her own. But I consider it one of the best movies ever made. And so if you haven't watched Blade Runner, this is your chance to do so, or I'm telling you to do so. Please, a suggestion. As I go through my quest, I'm rewatching movies. I'm going to put up more movie reviews. I think my next movie might be Alien, released in 1979, also directed by Ridley Scott. It was not just a horror movie. It was a horror / sci-fi film. One of the best ever. Very different than Aliens, even though Aliens is great as well, from Jim Cameron. I would say Alien, the first one from Ridley Scott, is more horror / sci-fi based, and Aliens, which came out in, I think, 84, 85, the second one, from Jim Cameron, is more action based. A little horror, but mostly action. Both movies are great. I love the Alien universe. I plan on doing more of those. Prometheus, Alien Covenant. I love those movies. So Blade Runner, the final cut. If you want to be immersed in a futuristic, dystopian hellscape of Los Angeles that was way ahead of its time, even though it was released in 1982, then I think you'll appreciate this movie. The acting is great. The soundtrack's great. The ending is phenomenal. The ending is phenomenal in the final cut. I loved it. The replicants, the irony, are more human than actual humans. It's beautiful. Please feel free to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I plan on talking more pop culture things, movie reviews, book reviews, vlogs, talking about the state of the world, everything. But mostly movies, books, and television series, along with music. If you like what you watch, please feel free to subscribe to my channel. I hope you guys have a great upcoming weekend, and thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Thank you.